Hi, I'm Dave Isaacs and welcome to Core Concept. This is a new series that's going to introduce what I think are some of the most important ideas about learning to play the guitar well. And these are things that you might not have ever learned, or maybe the ideas have been introduced to you, but not in a way that you've been able to apply them. And in my 30-some years of teaching guitar, I have found that these are things that have not only helped me be the kind of player that I need to be, but I have seen them help countless people over the years, and sometimes immediately. Some of these things can make a difference in somebody's playing right in the moment, or over a very short period of time, or maybe it takes a while longer for you to absorb things. But the bottom line is, when you take guitar lessons, if your focus is primarily just on learning to play songs or learning this chord or that scale or whatever that is, that's valuable and that's important. But without introducing some of these big ideas, I don't think you ever really become a player, because I don't think you ever really become musical. And when you come right down to it, this is the thing that I think most people feel like they're missing. I hear this over and over and over again. I've played the guitar for a year or 5 years or 20 years, but I still don't feel like I can play. And what that really means is that someone's learned how to put their fingers in the right place to do X number of things, but they haven't really learned how to play music in a way that's comfortable and confident. And those are the two words that I think are the most important. You shouldn't be all that concerned with the specifics of what you're learning how to do in any given moment. Remember that it's a long-term process to learn how to play. But what you should be thinking about is learning how to do something, anything, confidently and comfortably. And when you know what that feels like, then learning something else and getting it to that level becomes a whole lot easier. So the first idea that I want to introduce today is the idea of making friends with your guitar. And this is not a complicated concept. It just means that you need to be physically comfortable with the instrument. And you might be surprised to find how many people have played for long periods of time, years, and who still aren't physically comfortable. Or maybe they've gotten accustomed to something that's awkward, but they're used to it at this point, and so they don't really notice how awkward it is, and they don't realize that they're getting in their own way. So let me give you a couple of examples. I see people doing this all the time. Or maybe they're doing this. Or playing a scale. None of that sounds particularly good. None of it looks right. The fact of the matter is, the body is a mechanism. It's a mechanical construct. So is the guitar. And what we're trying to do is just to get this mechanism and this mechanism to interact optimally. Okay, there's basic mechanics at play here. And the main idea really is that the way your body works playing the guitar shouldn't be really any different from the way that it works when you're not playing the guitar. Fundamentally, for example, hand position. If I hold my hands out in front of me like this, I would call this a neutral position. Fingers are curled, wrist is basically straight, everything's relaxed. Well, when I go to the instrument, there's no reason why suddenly I should go like this. If this is a natural and relaxed hand position away from the guitar, then it should be a natural and relaxed hand position with the guitar. So when we're talking about the fretting hand, we're talking about relaxed wrist, straight but not rigid, because this is not a neutral position, and fingers curled and relaxed, because this is not a neutral position, and this is not a neutral position, and neither is that. Now that doesn't mean that your hands won't need to move around in some way. Playing a D chord in open position requires a different shape of the hand than playing an F bar chord, or if I start moving up the neck, if I need to extend, you notice my whole body has to change a little bit because I've got to get underneath the neck like this. But for sort of standard playing position, especially on acoustic, but really on any guitar when you are in this area of the neck, the specifics, see, people talk a lot about where the thumb is. The specifics of the thumb are not the point. The specifics are, how does your left hand, how does your fretting hand feel? Are you gripping? This is not natural either. Are you overly arced in a way that you're sacrificing all the strength in your fretting hand? Find neutral. Explore what it feels like to play very simple things in a neutral position. Most people do things like this much too fast. If you're learning a scale, then you need to make sure that you are not only learning where those notes are located, but you're also learning how the hand works comfortably, and even into subtleties like the fact that my hand is in a slightly different position down here than it's going to be when I'm on the trebles. And it's going to change a little bit when I come up here. And the fact is, whether you've been given advice on this, which sometimes can be well-meaning but leads you the wrong way if you don't incorporate it right, or whether you're just trying to find the right thing and you don't know what it is, the fact that you might not have experience with this doesn't change the fact that you do know whether you're comfortable in your body or not. And so you have to take those things into account. And when it comes to absolutes of how you should hold your hand or how you should do X or Y, you have to consider that everyone's body is slightly different. The mechanics are the same for everyone, but the proportions are not. So that means proportion of fingers to hand and hand to arm, arms to the rest of your body, the guitar you're playing, how large is it, how deep is it? There's a lot of variables to take into account. So you have to listen to your body and see what makes sense. When it comes to this hand, I see lots of people doing this. If you're strumming, you just want the arm to move as naturally as it would if you weren't doing anything. When I ask someone to do this, that's never a big deal. It's fluid, it's relaxed. As soon as they go to hit the strings, if that happens, then there's tension here that isn't natural, that isn't fluid, and it's easy to mistake tension for control when you're first learning how to do this. And so that's one of the things that creates bad habits for people. So if you're able to just get comfortable with the movement and then consider that a strum is simply allowing the pick to hit the strings, but with exactly the same form as I'm using for this. Now, producing different sounds does require different movements. If I'm playing one note, I don't need to move so much. So this is also a mechanical consideration. If you're trying to move a thing this big, that much, then away from the guitar, you wouldn't move that much. But on the guitar, for some reason, we think we have to do all of this other stuff, when in fact, and you see how natural that is. And it doesn't matter whether I'm playing single notes or full chords or partial chords. So you see how basically everything stays relaxed, everything stays fluid. The other thing you want to watch for is the way that you actually relate to the body of the guitar. one of the things you don't want to do is this. The shoulders become an important factor. Now, I should point out that sitting with a Dreadnought acoustic is often not the most comfortable thing in the world to do. And this is, again, where paying attention to your body makes a big difference. If I'm not careful, I'm likely to end up with one shoulder much higher than the other, which feels terrible. So I'm finding a place to hold the guitar that's not forcing me to do too much of this. And in the case of this instrument, in this chair, I'm sitting in a straight back chair and I'm over towards the end of it. So a lot of my body weight is being thrown onto my feet, and so this way I've got the ability to sit up a little straighter. That becomes easier. As soon as I do that, that opens up the upper body. And I've got the guitar turned a little bit to the side, which might seem odd, but if I do this, it's straining my upper body, it's twisting my shoulders. So ultimately, now you might find when you're sitting that you're more comfortable if you say put your foot up on a footstool. The right foot on the stool can be really helpful this way. And notice how that holds the guitar a little more securely. Classical guitarists use the stool on the left leg. This is a great position for picking. I don't like it as much for strumming because of the way it impacts the way the pick hits the string. That's not as satisfying a sound to me as this. This, to me, gets a more focused tone, and the percussion is more musical. But you can experiment with that. Now, you could also use the strap. And if I'm doing a finger picking part, then this is often this is the more comfortable way to go. And I'm not using the footstool right now because the strap holds the guitar. Now, what if I stand up? One thing you might have noticed is that it's easier to keep the upper body open when you're standing. Everything is a little bit more fluid in terms of the movement, particularly of the strumming hand. And also, it's easy to move around, and I find I'm most comfortable if I'm sort of lightly shifting my weight back and forth between my 2 feet. But I'm feeling the weight of the body supported solidly on the floor, and that allows all this to open. Now, the height of the guitar matters, so you want to experiment a little bit with where is this most comfortable. This is all really part of the same idea. You just want to make sure that you're relating to the instrument physically in a way that feels reasonably comfortable. Now, it might not be familiar, or if you haven't thought about these things, doesn't matter how long you've been playing, you can suddenly feel like you don't know what you're doing because everything's foreign. But what that really means is that you're noticing things that you weren't noticing before. So making friends with the instrument means that you can hold it in a way that feels comfortable, that you're able to move freely, and specifically when you're able to notice and correct if tension or bad form is making it difficult for you to be accurate. In an ideal, perfect situation, if your form is good, your control is good, and you know where you're going, then you should be able to play anything accurately. Now, that's the absolute ideal, right? But it's certainly something to shoot for as far as just being comfortable with the instrument. Sometimes that just means sitting or standing and experimenting. Here's the footstool again. That definitely helps. You just have to be careful that you don't allow the neck to dip too much, because that's not good. So in a performance setting, if I'm seated, I'm going to be here on the edge of the chair, the guitar is turned a little bit. If I need to reach something, I might dip my wrist a little. I'm trying to make a reach. Then I am going to move around. The idea is not to be rigid. The idea is not to keep yourself in a single position, but just to find what balance feels like, what natural feels like. Doesn't matter where you are in your guitar journey. You've been living in your body your whole life. All you have to do is pay attention to figure out what feels right versus what doesn't. And the control will come over time. But it's got to start from a relaxed and natural and comfortable position. It's a very, very simple idea, and you will find, I think, when you start to apply it, that it makes a big difference in your playing. So this is core concept number 1. I'm going to be following up with a new one each week for the next 12 weeks. So please make sure you're following wherever you're watching this, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. Make sure that you follow the channel or the account so that you get all the new posts, and these will also be put up on the website as well with a link to the YouTube channel. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.